Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I just saw Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It is the second film in the Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it stars Simu Liu, Awkwafina, Tony Leung, and many more in this film, and it is also directed by Destin Cretton, if I said that correctly. And it is a new character and introduces a new superhero who's also a martial artist into the MCU. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description down below. And it is a spoiler-free review. I will not spoil this movie, so if you haven't seen it, you are all clear. And with that out the way, let's get started. The movie follows Shang-Chi, who is one of the greatest martial artists on the planet, and he is forced to confront his past, which is a dark one, all because of his father, known as the Mandarin, is hunting him and his family down, and Shang-Chi gets thrust back into a life he doesn't want to be a part of. And so Shang-Chi teams up with his best friend Katie in order to confront his father and his past, and so as the Ten Rings. I was really looking forward to this movie ever since they first announced it back at San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago. And when they released the first trailer, my hype for this movie skyrocketed. I was super excited. I loved what I saw. And it does feel, of course, like it's not your average MCU movie, which I appreciate. And it's safe to say that this movie lives up to the hype. I had a blast with this movie from the beginning all the way till the end. It's so fun. It has lots of heart, and to kick off the positives, I thought the acting was phenomenal in this movie. Simu Liu crushed it as Shang-Chi. He was perfect as this character. He nailed the humor moments, he nailed the fight sequences, and I love his dynamic with the characters, especially with his father and so as Awkwafina's character, Katie. He was terrific in the movie. Awkwafina, I really enjoyed her as the best friend in this movie. I loved her humor moments that she has here and there to lighten the mood of where they're at in the story. And one of the biggest highlights of this movie is Tony as Mandarin. He is easily one of the best villains in the MCU. And ever since Iron Man 3, when they had that Mandarin twist, I was wondering when we'll ever see the real Mandarin, and we did. And it's safe to say it was worth the wait because he was phenomenal. One of the best villains we've ever seen in the MCU. And I loved how they made his villain a little more tragic than absolute terrorist, which I really appreciate. But I'm not going to go into spoilers there. And I really liked the sister of Shang-Chi. She was really fun to watch. And I wish we got more of her. But I really liked her in the movie. And just in general, the acting is really great. And there are a lot of surprise cameos here and there that I will not spoil. But I really enjoyed them throughout. And then the second thing I love about this movie is, without a doubt, the action sequences. This is, without a doubt, the best action sequences in the MCU movies. It is on par with Winter Soldier or even better because they're choreographed so well, they're shot well, there's no shaky cam or all that. It's all steady, wide shots. You get to see everything that's happening, and I love it, and you feel the intensity of all this. And the actors did such a marvelous job portraying the martial art fight sequences because they were absolutely outstanding, and it was so cool throughout the movie. And without a doubt, one of the best parts of this movie as well, and I loved how they tackled it. And the third thing I loved is the visuals and cinematography work, because this movie doesn't visually look similar to anything we've seen before this, which I really appreciate as well, because it has a lot of beautiful cinematography moments, especially in those opening 20 minutes of the movie, which I won't spoil, and so as in the third act of the movie, and even throughout the middle act, there's a lot of great visual effects and cinematography work here and there, and I really appreciate that. I also love the soundtrack of this movie. There are a lot of great songs here, and they do fit the tone very well, especially when they play in the dark in the first half of the movie. In a specific sequence I will not spoil, but just a lot of the songs are really good for this movie, and the soundtrack in general is really cool. It's just like the Black Panther soundtrack is to the Black Panther movie, and so as the Guardians soundtrack and what they are to the Guardians movies, the soundtrack here is really great. And it's a well-paced movie for sure. It's like 2 hours and 12 minutes, and the movie doesn't feel that long. It's paced well. Maybe that middle half of the movie can feel like the longest bit of it, but it worked fine with me because they told what they needed to, and it pushes the story forward in a way, and it doesn't halt anything. So the pacing for it is really good, and I really like that because it makes the movie keep going. It keeps doing what it's supposed to do and do what it needs to do and not bring in anything that feels like it's not needed. So the pacing is also really solid for this movie. And I really like how they tackled family in this movie because of the fact that Shang-Chi is having to confront his past, and his dad is the Mandarin, and his sister is kind of complicated with him. So I really love how they tackled it, especially through the uses of flashbacks in this movie, which is not necessarily a spoiler as well. And so I really liked how they tackled it because it's a huge part of the movie. And I love how that's because the director has made movies that are about stuff like that, which I think worked tremendously well in its favor. And speaking of the director, he was the perfect pick for this movie. He definitely did a great job with the direction he took the story in. It doesn't feel like it's the wrong place to go to, but he took it in the right ways, and I really, really enjoy that a lot. He does a really good job tackling Shang-Chi, Katie, the Mandarin, the sister, and all these other characters throughout the movie to tell this story about him confronting his past. And I really dug what they did with it. And it's easily one of those movies where it feels less like an MCU movie, but more like a movie directed by a director. And that director is Destin Cretton. Oh, and please stay for the end credit scene because that end credit scenes are crazy. I sat there in total shock, and you gotta stay for it. And now we head into the negatives of the movie, and the first thing that comes to mind is the humor is very hit or miss. Marvel movies are used to having a lot of humor in their movies, like the Ant-Man movies and the Guardians movies and even Thor Ragnarok. And here, there are humor that worked in this movie, but then there's a lot of humor that felt misplaced. And a lot of it is due to how Awkwafina's character, Katie, says a lot of the jokes, and some of it does not feel like it came out at the right time, nor did it feel necessary. So there are jokes here and there that do not work for the movie. You just could have removed them because it tracks from like the moment that's happening. And so I think Marvel needs to try to like really tone down on the humor because they have been focusing so much on that. And I think Shang-Chi is another common case of too much humor, and a lot of it isn't necessarily needed. So while there are jokes that I do think land and are really funny, there are quite a few that simply just do not land for me. My next issue with the movie is that there are characters that I felt were underutilized. I won't spoil who, but there are characters in the movie that I really, really like, but they didn't get as much screen time as I hoped they would. And my third and final issue with the movie is that there is a lot of spectacle and MCU stuff that we usually see in third act of the movie. So it makes the third act pretty generic because the first two acts feel very different from the wider MCU. But then you get that third act and it feels just like some of your average MCU stuff where it got big fights, armies are fighting against one another, and like big spectacle and CGI fights and all that. And for entertainment-wise, I still enjoyed it. And at least it fits the tone and the theme of what the movie's about. But it didn't quite work all that much because it feels a little different than what came before for the movie. But luckily, it doesn't ruin the movie for me at all, not even the slightest. But it can be pretty generic in terms of climaxes that the MCU is normally known for. At least the action sequences in the third act are dope like the others. Oh, and don't forget,
you don't turn your back on family.
So in the end, I absolutely had a blast with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It's easily my favorite MCU movie we've had since Avengers Endgame came out. It has some of the best action we've seen in the series. It has great acting, a marvelous villain, beautiful visuals and cinematography work. and a really great story and message about family, and I highly recommend you go see it in theaters. It's absolutely worth your time. So in the end, I am going to give Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings an A, and it's a must-see in theaters. So yeah, go check it out. Go see us on the big screen. I highly recommend it for everybody, whether you're a Marvel fan or not. It's such a fun movie, and it's great. It's a movie that you should definitely go see when you head back to the theaters. Aside from the movie, I am so excited to see what happens next with Shang-Chi. I really love Simu as the character, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where he goes from here in the MCU, and I really would love to see him meet characters like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and even be a member for the Avengers. And I really hope we get a sequel or even a trilogy to this, because he can carry a series of movies led by him. So yeah, I really can't wait to see what the future of Shang-Chi is. And when it comes to Phase 4 movies, I think Shang-Chi was a much better Phase 4 movie than Black Widow. Because Black Widow, while I enjoy it, it feels more like a Phase 3 movie that came out a few years ago rather than a Phase 4 movie. This feels like Phase 4 to me, and because the action is better here, but a lot of it's because of the editing and all that, I just thought Shang-Chi just is a better film, both as an MCU movie, Phase 4, and action-wise. So, yeah. So, those are my thoughts on the movie. I would love to hear thoughts on it down below in the comments section, whether you liked it or whether you are a little bit in the middle about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is in the description down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.
You got this.
Thank you.